Hey, I'm Andy Chanley from 88.5 FM, and this is one of our Here at Home interviews. And today we welcome in the legendary Edgar Winter. How you doing, Edgar?
I'm ready to rock and roll, Andy, as you are.
that's, that's what I like
Fire
to hear.
away.
You know Edgar, of course, as the composer of the #1 international smash record, Frankenstein, back in '73, Free Ride on that same album. But 50 years have passed. Edgar, tell us everything that's happened between then and now. Don't leave out a detail.
Well, music has happened, life has happened. Uh, I have my beautiful wife, Monique, to whom I've been married blissfully now for 43 years, coming up 42. Not bad for rock and rollers.
Yeah,
And
congratulations.
I've thank you. And basically, I'm having the time of my life.
Good to hear it. The thing you've been working on here lately, I want to talk about this right up front. It's Brother Johnny, an all-star tribute to your late brother Johnny Winter, who everybody knows as well. That comes out on April 15th. And let me start by asking you this question, just an open-ended question. Who was Johnny Winter to you? What made him special?
A number of things. Uh, he was my all-time musical hero. We grew up as kids playing together. Uh, and I should explain that although we have similar interests and we looked very much alike, people thought we were twins sometimes, which boggled my mind because I, I could see a family resemblance. But the other thing about Johnny was that he had this drive and ambition. He had the dream ever since I can remember when we were kids. And he read all the magazines and he watched Bandstand, and he was Johnny Cool Daddy Winter with the pompadour and the shades and the guitars and the girls. And I was like the quiet kid that played all the instruments. I just loved music, the beauty of chords, harmony. So we were the same in that we loved music, but for different reasons. And that was in itself was one bond. The other thing was being albino. I think we had a different mindset, a different sort of worldview than most people would have.
How
And
so?
well, whereas Johnny reached out with his music, I think he saw it he was the extrovert and I was the introvert, and he saw it as a way to gain popularity, whereas I just sort of withdrew into my own personal private world. But uh, when I said my all-time musical hero, he's also a living hero because he showed me that albinism could be actually cool rather than a disability or a drawback. And you know how kids are. Kids will they'll make fun of anything if you're too short or too fat or too thin, or you've got a funny voice or big nose. And that's just all kid stuff. But the way Johnny was able to turn that around to his advantage just stuck with me, and just his ability to do that I thought was amazing.
Yeah,
But
well, that he did that and was influential in that way. We all benefited from that you did lead a public life. Um, the guest on this tribute album, just incredible. I'll start off with the big supporters of 88.5 FM over the years, Joe Walsh and Ringo Starr and Steve Lukather. Uh, but just a who's who of great guitarists. I mean, Joe Bonamassa, Billy Gibbons, David Grissom, Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Besides being a labor of love, this just sounds like this had to have been a ball to record.
it was very much so. And in talking about the album, I first want to acknowledge my wife, Monique. I never would have undertaken the project without her. And after Johnny's death, I was really devastated, and I had a lot of offers to do a tribute album. There was a lot of interest in that regard, and it just did not feel right. It felt like exploitation of Johnny's name. I just wasn't ready to do that. I spent years not making this this particular record, and finally, as time passed by, I was talking to Monique about it, and she said, "Well, you always speak of Johnny as your all-time musical hero, and acknowledge that were it not for him, you wouldn't be where you are. You know, here's your chance to acknowledge all of that." The other deciding factor, or I should say the second one, was meeting Bruce Quarto, who's the president of Quarto Valley Records, and it's a really cool custom label. He wanted to do the album for all the right reasons. He loved Johnny's music, and he said, you can have complete freedom, take as long as you desire, and do it any way you want. I may have opinions from time to time, but all the major decisions are yours. And I knew when I heard that he was the right person to make the album with. And thirdly, I want to thank Ross Hogarth. Ross came on as the engineer mixer originally, and I did my album before this, Rebel Road, with Ross, and he sort of saved that project. We were kind of struggling in the studio, and when it came time to mix, he was the guy that saved the day. And after working with him, I said, I'm never going to work with another engineer mixer. Ross is great. And he became so much more than that. First of all, I just asked him if he would mix the album. He said, yeah, I'd love to mix. And Ross loves Johnny as much as I do, and is just as familiar with all of his music. And he brought so many people into the project that I would never have thought of, like Taylor Hawkins, for example.
Right.
And of course, having worked with Taj Mahal and Kebmo, he knew Kebmo from the Tajmo album. He suggested Doyle Bramhall to do the acoustic "When You Got a Good Friend," the Robert Johnson song that's on the album. John McPhee to do the slide on Highway 61. Just a whole lot of Phil X plays with Bon Jovi, Madman on the guitar, and like I heard him play on records and so forth, but I had no idea the range and extent of his talent. But those are the three people, and you know, Ross ended up being not only a co-producer, but we produced it together, and a co-creator. He worked on it just as every bit as hard as I did, and I had honestly, like, right after Johnny's death, we had been scheduled to do this tour called the Rock and Blues Fest, and it was we were both to appear with our respective bands and play our sets, and then to be jamming at the end, and I was so totally unexpected. And with Johnny's passing, I just naturally assumed that this tour would cancel. But much to my surprise, the promoters wanted it to go on as scheduled with me and my band as the headliners. And I thought, man, this is going to be very emotional and possibly difficult. But at the end of the first night after I played Frankenstein, I did Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, and I forget, maybe Johnny Be Good, Highway 61, 2 or 3 of Johnny's songs, and dedicated the end of the set to Johnny. And it was such a source of strength and comfort playing those songs. A lot of them songs that we played uh, as kids. Uh, and everybody on the tour was so kind and supportive, uh, and uh, getting up to jam, and it became a sort of a tradition. And that's what actually started the idea percolating in my mind, because I realized this is not just people sensing a business opportunity. This is Johnny's devoted, loyal fans that really want to see this happen,
Yeah.
and that and so it has finally now come to pass.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a real source of catharsis for you, for your grief, and also your appreciation for Johnny. It's neat to hear you tell the story yourself.
Well,
Um,
it was joyous. I have to say that. I mean, there were some tearful moments. Uh, "Drown My Own Tears" was the most emotional song on the record for me, because when uh, I always felt like Johnny did that song especially for me, because he knew how much our musical tastes were different, and he loved Delta blues, the country style, like people like Lightning Hopkins and Alan Wolf and Muddy and all those. And I loved Ray Charles and Bobby Blue Bland and BB King. Uh, so he said, "Edgar, just uh, arrange the horns, do the horn chart just like Ray did, and play the piano." And he didn't even put guitar on that song. And I always felt like he did it because he wanted to give me the opportunity to do something on his album in my style. So when it came time for me to sing that song, I I felt like I was singing that back to him the same way he sang it to me so many years ago when he was young and so alive. And not only that, I was singing it to my parents who have passed on, and all the guys in the bands that I've played with. I'm the last surviving member of the Edgar Winter group. Dan Hartman, Ronnie Montrose, Chuck Ruff have all passed on. Jerry LaCroix, the lead singer in White Trash. But, you know, uh, that was, as you said, very cathartic, and a beautiful cleansing experience. And beyond that, the whole album was such a joy to make. I got to meet so many people that I had never had the opportunity to play with. And the thing that I loved about, I didn't want to make a copy album, and I just wanted to find great artists and have them pay tribute to Johnny by doing what they love to do, to make their songs, make his songs their own and play them in their style. And the other thing that I was careful, I didn't select an artist with regard to any particular song. I only wanted people to play songs that they felt passionately about playing. So I would give people like 4 or 5 choices, and everybody would have, like, I remember talking to Joe Bonamassa. Joe, we had played some shows together and talked in passing, but never really got a chance to sit down and talk. But I was going through the song list and I got to Self-Destructive Blues. He's, "Oh, wow, you're really going to do Self-Destructive? That's the first Johnny Winter song I ever learned, and I played that with my band." Uh, he was just so excited. And oh man, he came in with a old Firebird and a Bassman amp, the exact same gear that Johnny had used, and he just killed it. I mean, I was sitting there and I just closed my eyes, and it felt like Johnny's presence was there in the studio. Uh, Same thing happened with Warren Haynes. I don't know Warren at all either, but Johnny had his favorite people, and he always used to talk about, Warren Haynes and Derek Trucks being from the Allman Brothers. But Warren, when I got to the song "Memory Pain," so, "Oh, you can stop right there. That's the one I'm gonna do." And he did something that was the coolest thing. Uh, uh, I think in terms of just playing, I think Joe Bonamassa maybe channeled Johnny the most clearly. Johnny had a unique style. It was so intense and just relentless. I used to call him the Coltrane of blues rock. And what I meant by that is that that Coltrane had this ability to extend himself as a soloist, and it was just like an endlessly inventive stream of consciousness. And like if whereas one guy might play 5 or 6 choruses, like Coltrane would play 20, and Johnny was the same way with blues and rock, and Joe somehow really captured the essence of that. I think he must have listened. Well, I know obviously he had played the song, and he played it just like he'd been playing it since the day he was born. He had obviously listened to Johnny a lot. But what Warren did, and this is very similar to Johnny, as far as the approach, his was the most like Johnny. He walked up to the mic, he plugged in the guitar, he got a sound, and he did the song all the way through from start to finish, singing and playing at the same time, just as though it were Johnny's blues trio. That's exactly the way Johnny recorded. Most guitar players, they'll come in and they'll say, oh, let me lay down a rhythm track and then we'll focus on the solo and then I'll go out and sing it, put the vocal on. But I mean, that's playing the blues. And I was so blown away and impressed by that, that honesty and that sincerity. And just the fact that he chose to do it that way, I thought was really amazing. But, every one of these songs, the whole album originated with picking the songs. I chose the songs before the artists. And I've always felt that Johnny's playing had a depth and scope that a lot of people weren't aware of. And he's like his authenticity as a blues player, especially slide guitar. That was the thing about Johnny that was the most amazing. He knew all of these old alternate tunings that he got from all the old guys, and he had studied that music and just played it endlessly. And that doing Meantown Blues, which once again, I went back to Joe Bonamassa because he had, I felt like that was going to be the most difficult song on the album to capture. But I digress here. We were talking about the songs, and I was saying that there were obvious songs that I knew everyone would expect to hear, like Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo and Alive and Well. And then there are all of these other songs that Johnny became associated with, and were sort of like keynote songs for him, like Jumpin' Jack Flash. He loved the Stones. Highway 61, he loved Dylan, he loved his lyrics and the whole mystique. And then, the question in my mind was, should this just be a straight ahead blues record and a tribute to the great legacy Johnny left the world, or should it be a more personal dedication from me to my brother based on a lot of my particular personal favorites? And I feel like the Johnny that I knew and grew up with was a completely different person than the image Johnny chose to project. And, he was a blues man, and he not only played the music, he lived the life. And I think he was most comfortable, most at home on the road. And he was just like those blues guys. They're in their 80s and they're still doing 200 or 300 shows a year. And he was true to the blues, and I love him for that. But he did go through this period, when he had Johnny Winter around, which I thought was just an incredibly great rock band. He loved rock as well, and just an amazing rock player. But there was a sort of a conflict there, because management and record company people, they all encouraged him to go in a more rock direction, thinking that that would gain a wider audience. And Johnny was drawn that way too, because he wanted the success. And since we're discussing the songs, the irony of what happened with Johnny through his career was, I explained to you how in childhood he had this drive, and he worked his entire life, to accomplish that. And once he had attained that goal, it was as though he had seemingly everything. He had recognition, adoring fans, money, fame. It wasn't what he had expected it to be. And I remember him saying, man, I never thought it would be this way. I feel so isolated and alone. I don't know who to trust. And I love it, but it just doesn't seem, it's not what I expected. It was like one of those be careful what you wish for things. And I think that, well, I know that he resolved that later. After going through that rock period, he rededicated himself to blues, and he always loved and appreciated his fans. But he did go through that period of disillusionment. The reason I bring all this up is because there were only 2 songs that I wrote on the album, and one of them was Lone Star Blues, which I tried to write in Johnny's voice. But this is what I felt like he was going through at that particular time, and I wanted to express that in a song. And I thought, well, a star feeling alone, Lone Star Blues. I mean, and hey, we're from Texas.
Yeah,
we're from Texas. Perfect. And the cool thing about that song is, I thought, well, Ross knows Kebmo, maybe he can get, I wanted a real authentic blues player. And what Kebmo did was, in making it a duet, because this whole thing was in Johnny's voice, and when Kebmo came in and in the chorus, it sounds like the Lone Star Blues. He introduced this note of compassion, like he was empathizing, like he was the wise old blues player, saying, yeah, things can get tough, but it's going to be all right. And that just added a whole different dimension to the song that was so beautiful. And the way he sang it, like when I started out, well, I was born in Beaumont, the gravelly Johnny voice. And then when he came, his was so laid back and like a warm, friendly kind of sound. And I did my whole vocal over in a more of a natural, sort of a casual storytelling style. But thank you, Kebmo, for transforming that song. So that's, as you can see,
it has to be fun to see someone else come in and interpret these songs in a different way and sing them back to you. And I want to again let everybody know that this album, Brother Johnny, that Edgar and his friends did to pay tribute to the great Johnny Winter, comes out on April 15th. I want to ask some questions about you, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Because this is the first time I've had a chance to talk to you, Edgar. So maybe just some rapid fire things, looking back at your career in total. Well, I'll start with the big one, Frankenstein. It's so gothically heavy and evocative of a monster. You hear it every Thanksgiving, every Halloween played, of course. But the song, I've read, wasn't named after Mary Shelley's monster. It was actually a reference to the edits that were made to a much longer jam to bring together this eclectic arrangement. Can you corroborate that?
Yes. That is absolutely the case. I wrote the riff to Frankenstein years before the song was recorded. This was when Johnny first invited me up to New York to make his first several albums, and then he had asked me to sit in with his blues trio, and nobody even knew Johnny had a brother at the time. He'd do the first part of that. Now I'm going to bring on my little brother Edgar. And I'd go, no, there's another one. It was like, and I thought this would, it was sort of like a cool walk-on kind of riff, and so we did a version, a sort of a version. It had that tag, as the hook, and I played Hammond B3 and I played alto sax solo, and then we had 2 sets of drums, and I did a dual drum solo with his drummer, with just sort of an excuse, to introduce me and sort of showcase myself as a multi-instrumentalist. And hey, we played it and forgot all about it. Then years later, with the advent of the synthesizer, I was looking for a song, a vehicle to feature the synthesizer. And I thought, wow, I bet we used to call it the double drum song because of the dual drum solo. And so I thought there's got to be a way to rework that. So, switch the drums to timbali, so we didn't have the problem of 2 drum kits. And then, it just sounded so cool with that subsonic synth bottom. And then we never thought about recording it. It was just like us playing around, having fun, and it got to be so long. Every time I would program a new sound, I would write, that would inspire me to write a different piece of music. So the whole thing got to be like 25 minutes long. And since you've asked about myself, there are a few really significant things that a person does that you reflect back. I think the idea of putting a strap on the keyboard.
I was going to say, you invented the keytar pretty much.
Well, yeah, I don't like to call it a keytar because the idea wasn't to make a keyboard like a guitar in any particular sense. It was just, for me, I was just so frustrated being stuck behind a big bank of keyboards. Nobody can see what you're doing, and you can't move around. It's just it's not a good stage position, to be in. And
but it seems pretty obvious. It seems like, like put a strap on it. I can walk around with it. You're the first one to do it.
I just happened to be the first person to think of it, and that really changed the face of music in a very real way. There are a lot of groups that changed their whole look and vibe. And I think, like, for the first time, people could, much in the same way guitar players are so much fun to watch because you can see what they're doing. All of a sudden, the same was true with a keyboard. The first time I walked on stage with that, I just it was one of those rock and roll moments. I said, "Oh, this is something." And then, like, I've played. Billy Preston was at one of our shows, and like 2 weeks later on TV, I saw Billy doing it. I said, "Okay, this is gonna catch on." So anyway, as I was saying, you had mentioned like the Frankenstein story. So we just accidentally, when we recorded the album, like the cardinal rule back then was tape is always rolling. So we just was one of those things that, because we just had fun playing it, we never thought of recording it because it was far too long. And we had 2 or 3 20 30-minute versions of it. And I was talking to Rick about it, and he said, maybe we could edit that into something that would be usable. And I said, no, that's a crazy idea, but I love crazy ideas. So it was a good excuse to get even more blasted than usual and just have a big end of the session editing party. So back in those days, the only way to edit was to physically cut the master tape. So
Yeah.
like cutting a diamond, if you made a mistake, you blew it. And then like we were trying to figure out how to put it together. It was all draped over the backs of chairs and on the console and on the couch and Chuck Ruff. We were trying to figure out, okay, well, here's the head, here's the main body, and how do we put it back together? And Chuck Ruff, the drummer, mumbled the immortal words, "Wow, man, it's like Frankenstein." And since he said it, we all looked at each other and said, "Oh, that's it. So
That's
the
it.
monster was born."
uh you talked earlier about some of the people that were in that band. From what I read, it sounds like you're the one who turned Ronnie Montrose into a rock guitar player. Before that, he was playing more jazzy stuff like with Van Morrison, songs like Wild Night. But he said you went to him and said, "Hey, I need some hard rock stuff now."
Yeah, I always thought that Ronnie gravitated that way naturally, but he did like some people like Leo Kottke, like sort of out of the way people. I never thought of him as being into jazz, but that's interesting that you would say that, because I knew that he played with Boz as well. But Ronnie, uh, I liked Ronnie because he was an unpredictable player. He very much in the moment, and that's I like the chemistry between the first person I found in that band. That band was like a sort of a massive talent hunt, and I had said, well, I'm going to create the quintessential all-American rock band, and I did it in large part to repay Clive Davis for believing in me throughout my career. I had done a number of albums, and they all got critical acclaim, but none of them had sold a whole lot of records. They went gold, but nothing like what They Only Come Out at Night did. And I thought, well, I'll just do everything the way you naturally see it done. And as soon as I heard Dan Hartman, we were just like listening to tapes that were sent in. I immediately know this guy is
I was going to ask
just
you about Dan
great.
Hartman. There's a guy that was a child prodigy on piano, and then he sings on your second biggest hit, "Free Ride." Everybody knows him from that. But then he goes on to have that disco hit, "Instant Replay," and then that song was on the Streets of Fire soundtrack. "I Can Dream About You" in the
Right.
'80s. Just had this ridiculous career. You basically went and just shopped for these people and put together kind of an all-star band of sorts.
That's exactly what I did. And that was all. I wanted people that were not only great musicians, but who would contribute to the direction of the band. And I myself being I really love jazz and classical. And I don't really consider myself a commercial writer. Dan, on the other hand, loved that style of music, and he was just so talented. And writing with him was such a joy. He would always come up with like the things that I always found myself having to try to simplify, and Dan did that just so naturally.
Just
And there, he
automatically.
had a sort of a youthful innocence. Like if you listen to Free Ride, it has a youthful innocence about it. And then Ronnie, to me, had the more dark edge, and I loved that that kind of chemistry. And then Chuck Ruff, the drummer, Ronnie suggested Chuck, but he was just like, he just loved to play. He was like a ray of sunshine. And that band was really, it was fun. I'm honored to have shared the stage with them. And as you pointed out, they all went on to do great stuff.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew Dan would. There was never a doubt in my mind. But like working with people like James Brown and like Living in America. You've mentioned Tina Turner, uh, you
Sure.
know, and then uh, you know uh, uh,
David Lee
Dan
Roth, you played with
maybe,
Todd
yeah,
Rundgren,
yeah,
all these people.
all these people.
I want to
But
ask you about the album that you mentioned, that those songs are on. They only come out at night. The the iconic album cover. It's you. If you can't conjure it, and you're watching this interview right now, it's Edgar, topless with makeup and hair kind of flowing off in the wind. And this is like a year after David Bowie's Hunky Dory, and a year before Mick Jagger looking like Katharine Hepburn on the cover of Goat's Head Soup. The cover of yours seems really in line then with what was happening in the early 70s, that glam look. But looking back from a 50-year perspective, it almost seems like you're a bit ahead of the game in breaking down gender norms a little bit with that. What are your thoughts about that album cover? It's so iconic.
well, it was not seriously intended. In other words, it was not a concept that I said, "Oh, I'm going to do this." We were just doing this session, and Scabullo, the renowned fashion photographer, his makeup guy said, "Oh, let's do something crazy," and I said, "Well, this should be a hoot. I'll just." So he did all of this makeup and put like costume jewelry. It was bizarre. And I said, I'm curious to see what this is like. And I've always felt sort of like I uh, have a stage persona. I have sort of like an alter ego. I'm basically a quiet, shy person. I had to overcome that. And then, hey, y'all ready to rock and roll? That thing that I do. But, that started when I was a kid. I remember my mother made a Superman costume for me, and I wear that to school under my clothes. So I kind of liked uh
That
like
was in the mode of George Reeve, right? Or George
yeah,
Reeves from the TV. Oh
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
But so when it was more when I saw it, it was just so stunning. I said, I can't believe this is actually me. And I said, this is actually a cool satirical comment on the times, because I looked unusual already. And here were all these people like David Bowie and Alice Cooper, trying to do the most bizarre thing. I said, well, I'm gonna do the ultimate wild, crazy thing by just simply letting that album be. Plus, I thought it was so uh, dramatic. I mean, it was an eye-catching
It was
thing.
striking. Yeah,
I
yeah.
Yes, and I couldn't, I couldn't resist it. And I honestly did not think I I thought it was you mentioned like transgender and all of that stuff, and I thought that aspect of it was really cool as well.
Yeah, it
Uh,
seemed inclusive in some way.
yeah,
Yeah, I thought
exactly.
that was interesting. Well, you just turned 75 in December, if I'm not wrong. What
Yeah, you
odds
got
did
it.
you place? What odds did you place on living to see it? I mean, did you live? Did you indulge in excess in the 70s, or has it just been all clean living and you knew you'd get here?
No, I overindulged and thankfully recovered and was able to see like that. To me, it really was a life and death choice. And like all my idols, all the jazz people people like Charlie Parker and Coltrane and Cannonball, uh, many of them were addicts, and it had a certain mystique to it. And oh, I mean, back then it was just like, how many different drugs can we ingest and still be able to go on and do some kind of a functional show. But when people like started dying, when Jimmy and Janice and I just realized I really need to make a choice, and I sort of slowly stopped things one at a time, uh, quit hard drugs altogether, and then I just smoked pot and drank for years. Uh, Finally quit drinking in about 2000. And I quit smoking cigarettes. But I did expect to live a long life because my mother was 93 on her death, and no, I'm sorry, 90. Yeah, and my father was 94, and
Good
our
genes.
great grandfather lived to 97. My grandfather died early. He smoked. He had emphysema and would have lived longer. And I was out. That's why I was so shocked when Johnny died as early as he did. But uh, as you pointed out, uh, the way you live is going to have consequences, and I think that overall accumulative effect. And even though Johnny was frail, as he still wanted to go out there and rock and wanted to play, and I think that's the way he chose to go out. But yeah, I used to think of it when I was sitting in school, kind of daydreaming and thinking, well, what year is it going to be when I turn this age or that age? Uh, I'm not surprised. For a while, I thought it might be it might be an early thing. But once I kind of got back on the right track, I thought, well, I think I've averted what could be short burnout kind of life,
Yeah.
and and I thank my wife Monique. uh, we both were good for one another, but and I thought, well, uh, if I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of her. uh, and we were positive beneficial influences. uh,
I see that a lot. I see it in people like Ringo,
yeah.
and his wife, and Joe and Marjorie. It seems like there's a little bit of a theme. You and Monique with the same kind of story. By the way, you were in the All-Star band a couple of times with those guys. That just seems like an absolute blast.
Yeah, I didn't know I was joining this elite family here that I'm already a part of in other ways, but uh, this is great, and I'm so thrilled and proud to be a part of this particular family. But yeah, playing with Ringo, uh, I mean the Beatles are in a class unto themselves, and to me they're bigger than music. What they did transcends music. Really, they changed the mindset of an entire generation, and they brought about a revolution without having to fire a shot, because it was a revolution of the mind, of the spirit, of the heart. To me, the Beatles like represented a sense of freedom. And the thing I loved about Ringo, not only is he a great musician, a great drummer, but he's a great human being. And when you get, he's just so natural and so in the moment, and he's such a heartfelt advocate and spokesman for peace and love. And we don't have time to talk about all of this stuff, but Woodstock was the thing that changed my life, and that's really is what started my musical career. But Ringo was just like the idea of peace and love, just is just so great. And being able to be a part of that, and I'm going out with Ringo this year if that all comes together.
Comes together. That's
uh,
awesome. That's good to hear.
and I'm
Yeah,
really very
Ringo.
much looking forward to it. Yeah.
Ringo says peace and love are enough, and by God, it's certainly a good start. Hey,
Yeah.
I've just certainly enjoyed you being generous with your time today, Edgar. I can listen to you tell these stories forever, and maybe we'll get a chance to do it again sometime soon. I want to plug the new album one more time. It's called Brother Johnny. Comes out on April 15th. Get that wherever you get records. And if you're a Johnny Winter fan, and if you're not yet, I think you probably will be after you listen to it with all of these great collaborations. All the best to you. Good luck this year when you go out on tour. And next time maybe we get together and you play some music for us.
I'd love to do that. And I'll just do my little bit to close out. I'd like to thank all of our fans, those of Johnny as well as my own career. And we could never have done it without you. We love you all. And it's meant the world to us to be able to do what we most love and see you all out there rocking and having a great time. So if you love the blues or you just love guitar, and certainly if you love Johnny, you're going to love Brother Johnny, the album. And so my love to you all, and get ready to rock and roll.
I'm Andy for 88.5 FM. Take care.
88.5 FM, KCSN, and KCSN HD1 Northridge, Los Angeles. KSBR and KSBR HD1 Mission Viejo. A service of California State University Northridge and Saddleback College. Member-supported public radio. Streaming on the web at 88.5fm.org.